my name is Ben Pinnington. I'm Managing Director of the PR firm Polaris Media. We provide PR and marketing services to industry, notably one of our biggest sectors is the maritime industry. And we have developed an ecosystem of products from publicity to social media to creative design to help companies realize the mountain of marketing value that they're sitting on. The big challenge that we find for our clients is that they don't have the in-house expertise to fully understand how to promote themselves. So they're sitting on this mountain of marketing value and they're not doing themselves justice. So we come in and we help them to solve that difficulty, and we help them to engage with their stakeholders, to promote their front people, to generate opportunities and sales, and to help them more than anything else meet new people, because PR is like a ship that can take you from an island of your existing contacts to new continents of new people, new contacts, new business, new opportunities. Well, I've been working in the media now for over 20 years, and 13 of those have been in the maritime industry. And what struck me when I started working in the maritime industry was this was a sector that had some of the greatest stories to tell of any industry in the world, but it wasn't particularly good at its PR. So I felt there was widespread misunderstanding and ignorance really of what PR is and what it is there to do. So I felt that I needed to write something which would help organizations and businesses to understand what PR truly is, because PR is not communications gloss, it's not an add-on to marketing. It is much more than that. It's more than just broadcasting a message and expecting people to become advocates of you and to be influenced by what you say. Because PR is as much about listening as it is about talking. So PR is there to shape the strategic direction of the organization by listening to stakeholders, because we can only really expect to influence stakeholders if we show that we are listening to them and we are becoming advocates of their message. Then they're much more likely to become advocates of our message. And that's really the objective of PR, is to deepen relationships with stakeholders. So it was really to try and give more information, give more advice as to what PR is truly about. Partly brought out of love for the industry, absolute love for the industry, and also frustration that this is an industry that has not historically been good at PR, prefers a lower profile, is quite faceless, and it really needs to improve its PR, particularly with the huge decarbonisation agenda that is sending shockwaves through the maritime industry and really thrusting maritime, blinking into this blinding new debate, the green energy debate, the climate change emergency debate, because maritime is responsible for carbon emissions equivalent to the size of a country the size of Germany. So it is absolutely fundamental to the green agenda, and it has to be listening to key stakeholders like David Attenborough, the Duke of Cambridge, Greta Thunberg. All of a sudden it's part of a much bigger debate, and it can no longer disappear into the shadows and have a discreet low profile that is increasingly untenable in today's era where it's a media-saturated world and everybody has a voice through social media. Maritime has to massively up its game when it comes to PR and communications. Well, I decided to write the book probably about a year ago, I think it was. I was listening to Daniel Priestley's Key Person of Influence book when I was doing my morning walk or my morning cycle. And I was thinking one of his great piece of advice is to write a book. And I was thinking, how could I write a book about PR that is in any way different? And I just suddenly had this light bulb moment of, well, maybe I should write a book about PR in the maritime industry, because maritime is historically not very good at PR, but has some of the greatest stories to tell. And we could draw on 13 years of experience of working across the UK and around the world, in China, in the Middle East, in Poland. So we felt that we had a lot of experience that we can draw on. It's very much aimed at the C-suite. I think a big message from the book is that PR is not a department that is in some remote part of the building, or a very detached PR firm that you only respond to in a reactive way. The C-suite needs to have PR fundamental to its operations, because, as I've said, PR is about shaping the strategic direction of the organization by listening to trends in society and listening to trends in the industry. And a very good example of that was the recent breakaway European Super League, which was greeted with fury by the football industry's stakeholders, and the owners of these major football clubs have been fighting a rearguard action ever since this announcement to repair the reputational damage that they self-inflicted on themselves, and they should never have been put themselves in that situation. PR is there to listen to stakeholders, understand what stakeholders' sentiment is, and feed that back to the C-suite to make decisions accordingly. And that was a classic example of not being in touch and in tune with your stakeholders. So that is why it matters in maritime, particularly, as I say, with the decarbonisation agenda, where maritime organisations are under greater scrutiny than ever before, and they have to show that they're in touch and in tune with the debate. Well, I think it's been an immensely rewarding process, and one thing that I would really like to say about this book is that really the advice in it is born not just from ourselves, but really standing on the shoulders of giants, of other people. I've read extensively, I've spoken to many of the leading PR practitioners in the world. I've undertaken a huge amount of training with the Chartered Institute of Public Relations to ensure that the book is up to date and contemporary, and I've become absolutely hooked on the CIPR training. It is brilliant, and I think, you know, as PR people, we're expected to do so many different things, whether it's crisis management, social media, media management, media spokesman, internal comms. We're expected to do so much, and the industry is changing so dramatically with tech. This is the PR industry as well as the maritime industry, but specifically the PR industry. So we have to undertake constant learning, and I know that this is something that the PR bodies do advise, that you need to, no matter how experienced you are, the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. And so this book is really born from undertaking a huge amount of research, and it's been incredibly rewarding, and I hope that that is reflected particularly in chapters around social media, crisis management, evaluation of campaigns. This is really some of the latest thinking.